Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dolls and cats, fish and hamsters, lizards, snails, grass and trees who are non-living, you are now tuned in with the greatest of the greatest, the best of the best, and that is myself. And I was doing a live stream for you guys and girls to listen to and chime in on, and the powers that be decided that I needed to get penalized for speaking the truth, and I do apologize for the inconvenience of you all taking you all this time and that occurring, and the stream ending just when I was feeling the Holy Spirit. But everything will be situated next Sunday. However, on the line with me, I have two very special guests. One of them called in last Sunday, and I really appreciate his support. And a new guest on the line as well. And yeah, I'm not gonna keep talking. I'm gonna let them introduce themselves, and then we'll hop straight into it. Whoever wants to go first.
Hey, my name is Jordan. Coming from Eugene, Oregon, and yeah, just here because I support the movement, Snyder Cut, and all that, and just wanted to chat with you folks.
And brother Rezzy.
What's up, guys? My name's Young Rezzy. My real name is Danny. I'm here because I support the Snyder Cut movement through and through, and yeah, here to gain new insights and new opinions.
Okay. Now, brother Jordan, I'll start with you first. When did you first catch wind of the hashtag release the Snyder Cut, hashtag I stand with Zack Snyder, and hashtag we want the Snyder Cut?
It had to have been at least a week after, no, not even a week, a couple of days after the theatrical release of Justice League, because I had seen it, and something, like most people, I thought something was off there.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that this is, I was skeptical, I was cautious of, just kind of digesting everything,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember seeing it the second time, just before I saw it, like the following Tuesday after it came out. I read a post on something about the Snyder Cut, and then that's when everything kind of, the realization came that this movie was clearly just taken from Zack, and this is not at all what we were supposed to get.
Right. Brother Rezzy, you and I chatted a very long time last Sunday, and again, I appreciate your support and you tuning in. So much has happened since then, I can't remember if I asked you, but when did you first catch wind of hashtag release the Snyder Cut and all the support and everything?
I think you did ask me this, but I'm absolutely happy to answer it again.
Mm-hmm.
I after that movie came out, I kind of took like a social media hiatus.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of mental health reasons. I just thought that it'd be a good thing to just kind of take a technology break. So I didn't catch wind of it until like a month or two after, and I went and saw the movie a bunch of times. I'm that guy in the friend group who knows a lot about comic books and comic book movies, and since they're so popular, people want a comic book guy to go in the movie with them and explain some stuff, or if things don't make sense, or whatever. So I've seen the movie like multiple times in the theater,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know, just each time I watched it, its rating for me just deteriorating, and just every time just slowly realizing that we were robbed.
Yeah, I completely agree. Now, knowing what all Zack Snyder has had to deal with in his personal life, as well as with the studio itself, and seeing people across the board on social media, and even most recently on YouTube with some pretty big name YouTubers themselves, notably Kevin Smith, as y'all saw in the unfortunately taken down stream. why do y'all continue to support it? Because I see so many people, you know, we seen the headlines about Ben leaving, WB greenlighting Super Pets, but not saying anything about Man of Steel 2, or, for example, Green Lantern Corps or Cyborg, which unfortunately may or may not be. Why do y'all continue to support the Snyder Cut through and through? Jordan, you can go first, my brother.
For me, it's definitely because every once in a while there's like a series or a trilogy or a group of movies that comes out that's super important to you and just resonates with you and speaks with you.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I know not a lot of other folks feel this way, particularly in the general public, but for me, Man of Steel and BVS was equivalent to something like Lord of the Rings or a Star Wars trilogy.
I feel
growing up as a huge fan of these characters, especially Superman. I got a Superman tattoo. Man of Steel just hit me all the right places. BVS, I mean, I still can't even decide which one I like more. They're just like so great. I love them both. And for me, it's we didn't see that conclusion. You know, we were it's like the equivalent of holding in a sneeze or not getting to like scratch that itch. Like, we have no idea how that was supposed to end, this epic journey. It's like if all of a sudden, you know, instead of releasing Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, and then Return of the King, they just showed the TV edit of Return of the King. You know, the hour and 30-minute version of it instead. So we have no idea how it played out at all.
Brother Rezzy?
It's interesting you're talking about Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. I was hanging out with a buddy on Friday, and I was trying to explain to him like the sheer epicness of what Snyder was trying to do. And what I realized was that, and I don't know if any other filmmaker has really done this, but what was supposed to be the Justice League kind of saga, to start with MOS and BVS, and then the Justice League trilogy, he had a trilogy within a saga. And people bring up Star Wars and, you know, that whole thing, but those are trilogies that, you know, like flow into each other. But this is like, I don't know, like, what? How long do you think watching those movies in succession, if they were to be made, would be like a day? Like, if you were to watch it straight, having a trilogy within a saga, that's very ambitious from a filmmaking standpoint. And I don't know if, for lack of a better term, I don't think WB was ballsy enough to kind of, you know, let him do his thing, and you know, just try this thing that not many people have tried to do before.
Facts. Let me ask you guys this. Again, we unfortunately know about Ben Affleck leaving. Now, when I first saw BVS, I was completely blown away by Ben Affleck's performance, even in the theatrical cut, which obviously I'm pretty sure everybody thinks that the Ultimate Edition is the true version of BVS and probably vastly superior. Would you guys disagree or agree?
Agree, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
100%.
Now, when you hear complaints about, you know, oh, Batman is killing, oh, Batman isn't Batman in this movie, oh, why is Batman so old? Before I get carried away, what are your guys' responses to these individuals who, you know, try to start Call of Duty Modern Warfare 15 on Twitter and Reddit and other places about, that's not my Batman? What would your response be, Brother Jordan?
There are so many different versions of these characters. I don't see. Well, one, I don't have a problem with it because, you know, Batman's killed so many times in other movies,
Mhm.
but in those other movies, it's never mentioned. Batman will blow up a car or a building, and
Mhm.
we'll just pretend like there weren't people in there. Or he'll let Joker fall to his death in the original movie, or any other of those other times. I think what makes it stand out in BVS is that it actually serves a purpose in the story. The whole purpose is that these killings are they have a weight to them. The film actually addresses them, and so that stands out. And I think it makes it clear that Bruce has gone through. He's in the dark side. He is not. He's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. I think there's a line early on. Alfred's like, "It's not always been like this. You've changed," or something along those lines. And so, I think the film addresses those killings and what all his actions and all that stuff. I think the film addresses that
Mhm.
and it makes sense within the movie. And with that being said, in terms of like if people have a problem with that, I don't know what to tell them, because it's just like read Detective Comics for the last 75 years. Watch all the movies. There's so many different versions of Batman.
Mhm.
I love Adam West. I love Michael Keaton. I love Conroy, the animated series. All very
Absolutely.
different portrayals. I like that variety. I can find enjoyment in the Batman Forever, Batman and Robin stuff too.
Mhm.
I don't see why we only have to have one version. I don't see why we can't have all these different versions. And it just sucks that Ben and Snyder got so much crap for that movie, when what they were doing was something unique and that hadn't been done before with Batman in movies.
Right. Brother Rezzy.
I think it comes down to plot, and I think Jordan hit that perfectly, because in the context of the story, it works. It
Exactly.
absolutely does. You gotta think about it objectively, right? And also, maybe realistically is not the right word, but from a psychological standpoint, you have to think of the wear and tear, not just on his body, but, what he does going out every night, to whoop some ass. And, if a supervillain comes along and does some really, screwed up things, right, just being bombarded with, traumatic events.
Mhm.
And then here comes this godlike figure, right, who blows him and everyone else, out of the water, right?
Right.
Like, Bruce is in like peak human physical like condition, right? But he doesn't hold a candle to Superman in power, right? And I think that movie's really interesting, and not to get political, but with the whole like toxic masculinity thing,
Mhm.
Bruce is dealing with his own masculinity, which is why he's acting out.
Mm.
He's like, oh, there's this guy who's bigger and stronger than me, and I gotta one up him. I gotta start becoming more ruthless. Like, I am a threat. Like, don't f with me. And yeah, he's just kind of lost it, and Alfred's trying his best to get through to him, but it's just nothing's really working. But I love that iteration of Batman, and especially the fact that he's older, because we're so used to seeing, the Batman origin story and the Spider-Man origin story,
Right.
Especially those have been milked forever now. But
Mhm.
it was just good to see something different. It was to really dive into the psyche of the character.
Mhm. Okay. Something I touched on in the sermon that YouTube destroyed. Rotten Tomatoes is a site that most of us are aware is heavily, in my opinion at least, heavily biased, and just something we should not invest our time, not only as comic book moviegoers, but as moviegoers in general. I've never been of the thought that we should just always rely on a reviewer, a blogger, a verified Twitter user, like that Jeremy Conrad guy, for the purpose of deciding whether or not we should what movie to watch, or deciding if this movie is watchable or not. If I've always been of the mindset, if you want to see something, go fucking see it. If you like it, I'm happy for you. If you dislike it, watch another movie. I'll pat you on the back, possibly. Did you guys see the whole thing about Rotten Tomatoes? You know, when it initially was revealed that Ben, was out as Batman, and that whole thing on Twitter with Rotten Tomatoes. And if so, what are you guys' thoughts?
I'm a little out of the loop here. Could you fill me in a little bit?
Yeah, basically, it was kind of almost mimicking, not in the same context, but it was kind of almost mimicking, the whole sad face thing that, Ben had with BVS and everything. And it was almost like they were mocking the fact that he was, out as Batman. Being unprofessional,
Gotcha.
basically.
Gotcha. Well, that's I thought I remember a few years ago when BVS came out. I thought I remember the CEO of Rotten Tomatoes. He came out and said something like, "Guys, BVS isn't that bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's gotten so low reviews, but I remember the CEO enjoying the movie just fine."
Mm-hmm.
But it's also weird because I don't know where I've seen this. I can't quote an exact source, but I know I've seen little articles about how Rotten Tomatoes will take mixed or average kind of mediocre reviews of movies, and if it's Marvel, they'll spin them and they'll apply that to a fresh review. But if it's other movies, like if it's Sony or DC or any other studio, they will they'll make that mixed kind of half and half review, and they'll turn that into a negative review, and that's kind of and that's concerning when so much of the general public unfortunately takes a lot of kind of stock in what Rotten Tomatoes has to say.
That's true. That's true. Okay. Moving on. What are you guys' thoughts on Michael B. Jordan, being interested in playing Calvin Ellis, the Calvin Ellis version of Superman? Brother Jordan?
I would be down for that. I think he'd be a good fit for the role. I'm not as familiar with all these other versions of Superman.
Same.
But I think he could do a good job. Another actor that I thought of recently is I've been watching True Detective, and I think if they went for an older version of Calvin, Mahershala Ali would be absolutely perfect. He's got that great kind of authoritative presence, but he can also be really genuinely kind and compassionate. And so, yeah, I'm all down to see different versions of Superman. I mean, hopefully Henry isn't out yet, but I'd be down.
Okay, brother Rezzy, what are your thoughts on Michael B. Jordan basically lobbying to play the Calvin Ellis version of Superman?
No problems at all. I have no idea why not. I mean, the thing about this that could be, I don't want to say troubling, but confusing for like general audiences is the whole alternate universe thing.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they take out, Henry's version of Kal-El, and they just do Earth 2 stories from now on, and that becomes the main world of DC in regards to film, then I don't have a problem with it. I just don't know how they're going to do it, It
is tricky. Let me ask you, do you have something more to say, Brother Rezzy?
No, sorry.
No, you're good. Let me ask you guys this. I'm sure you guys saw Toby Emmerich's comments about quote-unquote director-driven films going forward.
Gosh.
Now, I talked with Fran about this in a past video. Shout out to him. And we do know that Joaquin Phoenix will be playing Joker, and that movie will be releasing in October. Something I'm personally looking forward to. Joaquin Phoenix, that man is a acting, in my opinion, acting legend. What are you guys' thoughts on Toby Emmerich's comments? And if that be the case, like I said, why haven't we seen? Why do you think we haven't yet seen the Snyder Cut or heard anything else in regards to movies like, again, Man of Steel 2, Flash, and everything else? Why is it always, it seems like they're just picking and choosing?
His comments themselves are, I guess, fine if what he says, what he had said was true, like that they were always director driven, but that's just simply not the case. Unfortunately, it feels like a slap in the face. It feels like, this guy's. It just feels like a big lie.
Yeah.
Because DC is just course correcting. They wanted to do their. I mean, that's how they started. They started out trying to be director driven. They copied the Dark Knight Marvel for the Superman series, Man of Steel. They liked what Marvel was doing. Then they tried to copy that, and that blew up in their face. And now they're going back to the director driven model. And to say that they've always been about director driven films is just a lie when they've clearly tried to
sabotage.
Oh yeah, of course. Like it's just unfortunate, like the whole thing. And I think like what every Snyder Cut fan thought, like when they read that, I was just like, well, then just release it.
Exactly.
If you're truly about directors from now on, just release it. And why haven't we seen it? Is I kind of think like how Chris Swanson thinks. I think one of his recent videos, he said something like, Warner Brothers is just waiting for the right time to release it. And I feel like that's the case, because if we got Richard Donner's Superman 2 after something like 35 years or 20 years, we're definitely going to see the Snyder Cut eventually. It's just a matter of when.
Okay. Now, let me ask you guys this, and this is a pretty, this is not as a convoluted question. What are you guys thinking in terms of Man of Steel and BVS? If you had to pick one quote from either one of those films that hit you the most, which would it be and why? Brother Jordan, I know you said time constraints. I don't want to hold you up, so again, we'll let you go first, and Brother Rezzy will definitely get to you, brother.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. I think I'll answer this question and then I'll head out.
Okay.
But to answer the question, when I saw Man of Steel like 4 or 5 times in the theaters when it came out. Each time a new quote got me, and I recently rewatched it with a friend who hadn't seen it before. But the quote that got me this time was there's that bit where Pa is telling young Clark that he's an alien. He shows him the spaceship, and Clark just goes, "Can I keep pretending that I'm your son?" And then Jonathan replies to him, "You are my son." They hug, and it's just kind of a nice moment. And I think that line is just, I mean, we always talk about, I feel like the DC community, the people who love these movies, they really talk about how good the writing is in BVS, but I think in Man of Steel there's some great, just like really good lines in there. And for me, that line of Clark, he doesn't want to accept his destiny, his fate. He doesn't want to be the answer to all this. He doesn't want to be the source of all this conflict and trouble. And he just wants to be a normal guy. He wants to be this farmer's son. And I think the line kind of implies that Clark was like, oh, now that I'm an alien, this guy, he's not really my dad. He's not, he's just keeping me here for kind of existential reasons. But then Pa reassures him. He's like, you are my son. I love you still. And that to me is just really touching, the father-son aspect of that line. Yeah. But yeah, that's it for me. Thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it and enjoying talking with you.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to get together again sometime, brother Jordan, if that's all right with you, man. Really loved your responses, and you seem like a great guy. And I appreciate you supporting me as well, and supporting the Snyder Cut movement and everything. And yeah, we'll definitely link up again, man.
Absolutely, sounds good.
All right,
Have a good night, guys.
you too, man.
Thanks to the same.
All right, brother Rezzy, if you had to pick any particular quote from Man of Steel or BVS that resonated with you the most, which would it be and why?
Oh my gosh,
I know it's hard, man.
this question, man. I told you the first time I talked to you that just this reinvigoration, this modern retelling of Superman, just kind of spoke to me on every level.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Just feels like I'm watching myself, exaggerated, on screen. So I don't. It's not that it's not a good question. It's a great question. It's just a question that I don't really know how to answer right now. I mean, I think. And it's hard because it's like, from what perspective? From a literary perspective, from a dramatic perspective, from a thematic perspective, from a epicness perspective. Like, it's all those things wrapped into wrapped into a cinematic experience. But I think at the moment, my favorite line, or my favorite set of lines, is when in Man of Steel, when Clark's learning to fly, and he falls, and he gets up, and you hear the rest of Jor-El's speech.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are, yeah, that's really beautiful. I mean, I'm not trying to botch it, but no, I know everyone who's gonna be listening to this knows what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
But yeah, at the moment, those are probably my favorite set of lines. It's a thing that constantly changes for me, because I'll find new meaning in a different line, or I'll look at things from a different perspective and be like, oh, okay, this makes this moment that much better because this came across like this. So I don't know. Tough question. Good question though.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. Yeah, that's
No, by no means.
yeah, man. It's that line, that's a powerful line, and even coupled with the music in the background, I think it's like the piano key kinda in the background for me. That hits me very hard, and then thinking about the Superman question in BVS, coupled with the music, it's just epic and beautiful, and it makes you, me at least, it makes me think about things I don't typically think about when watching a superhero movie, and
Sure.
and that's the thing I think a lot of people have said about Zach's take on the movies, positively at least, is he's changed the way that we, the audience, look at superheroes. You know what I'm saying? We look at them from a different lens, per se. Brother Rezzy, this next question now, again, there's been a lot of people supporting the Snyder Cut. You, myself, Brother Jordan, shout out to him, Brother Fran, a lot of people worldwide, everywhere. It's not just in the U.S., it's everywhere. I know a lot of people, including myself, are just frustrated, just at this point, just full blown angry and disgusted that WB, Joss Whedon and et cetera company did what they did to the movie. And I think it started with them mandating that the movie be for me, it started with them mandating that the movie be 2 hours. That to me is ridiculous. and then, you know, of course, the forcing the reshoots, and then you hear all these reports about, you know, Kevin Shakira, Geoff Johns, you know, doing his dirt and everything. And what is your thought on all that we know? And what would you say to the people on Twitter, or the people listening, you know, the people in other places that are in support of the Snyder Cut? What would you say to them at this stage in the game?
I mean, we just gotta keep pushing, because the internet is it's a double-edged sword. It's a gift and a curse.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say, I don't know, I bet there were. I wasn't alive, you know, back then. I don't know if you were, but in regards to the whole, you know, the Donner cut of Superman 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
I bet people walked out of that theater the same way we walked out of Justice League. Like, like, what was that? Like, you know, I don't know what I just watched. Like, what happened? But, nowadays, with social media platforms and stuff, everybody's on an equal playing field.
Mm-hmm.
So, regardless of, what you use it for, you have a platform, and everyone's on that playing field and on that platform. So someone's voice is just as viable as somebody else's voice, right?
Facts.
And if we continue to keep pushing with the consistency and the intensity that we're doing,
mm-hmm.
I think that the answers that we're looking for, I think they're coming, especially with the Jason Momoa Instagram story,
mm-hmm.
that Instagram took down,
mm-hmm.
Of course. But I think that he just made $1 billion movie, and Warner Brothers likes the green, so they can't say, Snyder did everything wrong, and all this kind of stuff, because he casted him, and right. So like they're the bones, the bare bones of the DCEU, like the setup from Snyder.
Mm-hmm.
Warner Brothers knows that works, because people, a good amount of people like, these new incarnations of these characters. We as humans, we like to see only the bad sometimes, and we like to think that we're bombarded with the bad. But there's also some good. There's also some there's some positives.
Facts.
Within that, and we just got to keep pushing, and we got to keep pushing as hard as we are, and.
Mm-hmm.
We can't fatigue ourselves. I don't think we should, go any harder than we are. But if we keep it consistent, I think that we're going to be hearing things.
That was powerful, man. Let me ask you this, brother, Rezzy. Now, in regards to Jason Momoa, Now, I don't think did I ask you about Aquaman in the last live stream last week?
I don't think you did.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Now, Aquaman, as you know, released in December of last year. Released for a couple of days before Christmas and everything. Yeah. James Wan, who's seen numerous successes, even with Fast and Furious 7 and everything, helmed it. Jason Momoa was cast by Zack Snyder. He's also he and again Ray Fisher, and to some degree Gal Gadot, have intensely, in my opinion, supported Zack through and through and everything. And Aquaman was a movie that a lot of people were predicting that it wouldn't do as good as they were hoping, and a lot of people thought that the competition, a la Bumblebee, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and Mary Poppins Returns, were going to give it a run for its money. And in the end, we all know what happened. Now, my question for you is, why do you think Aquaman resonated with so many people, and what do you think is the singular reasoning for his success through and through?
I think this is really interesting. It made it was released in China before it was released anywhere else, I believe, and it had already made $300 million.
Right.
At that point, and I think it's because I think a majority of the Atlantean soldiers were Chinese. I think that's what I heard, or I believe I read that somewhere, and that makes sense that China would want to be represented in a big budget crazy awesome action movie, action superhero movie. But I remember Jason Momoa in an interview talking about dual culturalism. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but he talks about what it feels like to be from two different worlds or two different spheres, and I feel like a lot of people would be able to resonate with that kind of thing if you were brought up I don't know, let's say you're mixed with white and black, and you have both black culture and white culture integrated into how you were raised, and knowing that you're both and feeling like both and that whole kind of thing. I feel like that would resonate with a lot of people with in this character, because that's exactly what he is. He's a guy from two different worlds who in his opinion were never supposed to be, but that may have been a great thing, and those numbers show, and that's I think that's why so many people resonated with the movie and the character.
Okay. And of course Jason Momoa for the female audience.
Oh,
Jason, you mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to discredit that. But, yeah.
Now let me ask you this, brother Rezzy. Now, initially, there was a slate for DC. I think it was either in 2014 or 2016. It was one of them. I think it was 2014. Yeah. There was an original slate. The Batman at the time, was gonna be directed and written by Ben Affleck. Again, shout out to him. Jay Oliva last year, I believe it was, tweeted that the script was the best he had ever read, and unfortunately we won't get to see it, but Matt Reeves is a very talented filmmaker as well, and I trust that he will do the right thing, and I'm glad that at the very least he's had this much time to make a good to great Batman story that we haven't seen before. I know he said he wants it to be very noir driven, and I'm thinking about all the neo-noir movies I've seen in the past, and that alone excites me.
Sure.
Now, initially as well, we were gonna see things I mention all the time: the Flash, Green Lantern, of course, Cyborg, etc., etc. And it seems the only one that's kept this date through and through for the most part is Shazam.
Right.
Now, what is the one movie of those that I mentioned, aside from Shazam, of course, that saddens you the most that we probably won't see right away, between the Flash, Cyborg, and Green Lantern, of course, Man of Steel 2?
That's interesting that you bring up Man of Steel 2. Because a lot of people say that
BVS
yeah, exactly. We got Man of Steel 2, and I do agree with them. I feel like if they do make another Superman movie with Henry Cavill, I feel like they should call it Superman and then something, because Man of Steel is about him becoming Superman. Like when he kills Zod, and lets out that scream, that's the birth of Superman.
Okay.
but he was always the Man of Steel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was always able to endure all that pain and suffering and still care about everyone and always try to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Making that decision of siding with humanity, and even though they ridiculed him and put him to death, he still decided to choose them anyway.
Exactly.
But I feel like they gotta. I feel like they can't call it Man of Steel 2. You know what I mean? Like I feel like they gotta call it something else. But out of the movies that you listed, I don't know. It's a toss-up for me between either Flash or Ben Affleck's The Batman.
Yeah.
And now I'm starting to see, like, I get it why people want like a younger Batman, and I don't see why both couldn't or can't. Or, I don't know. Everyone's been saying that people are out and they're not, and actors confirm something and they can lie, or for me it's all up in the air. I don't take anything as confirmation until it's like 100% like completely solidified.
Right.
Like until Ben Affleck gets on social media and says it's been like a great run. I've had so much fun doing this, or if Warner Brothers or DC comes out and says that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I get the younger Batman thing. Like, and if they do a trilogy with a younger actor, I feel like it should be Ben Affleck's Batman. You know what I mean? Like that character, right? Like, but obviously he'd be younger and less jaded, and he'd act more like the traditional Batman, which is what we were gonna see in the Snyder Cut.
Exactly.
But we all know how that went. But yeah. It'd be interesting to see what Ben Affleck came up with for his own Batman movie, because he's done some great directing stuff like Argo and
The Town.
Yeah, The Town. Oh, that was good.
Yeah, it was.
But,
it really was.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Especially after seeing Joe's Deathstroke, I just had that instant thought of him squaring off against Batman, and I just nerdgasmed in thinking about it, man. Like that would have been
absolutely.
That would have been crazy.
Dude, hell yeah.
that would have been crazy to see, man. But let me ask you 2 more questions, brother Rezzy, and then we'll close out. I appreciate you as well stopping by and supporting my channel, and more importantly supporting the Snyder Cut. And we'll definitely have to, as well as Brother Jordan, get you on the stream in the foreseeable future. Now, you were talking about Batman, and that's something I was gonna ask you about. At this stage in the game, knowing about Matt Reeves, have you seen all of the Planet of the Apes films?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I think they're excellent.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Now, and everything, and we know he's a very capable filmmaker. Now, Caesar is, albeit Caesar is a less popular. I wouldn't say he's not popular, but he's less popular than Batman. And
sure,
Batman is a very important character to a lot of people everywhere, and we all want to see something that hasn't been done. We a few years back we had the Nolan films, which were really good in their own right. R.I.P. to Heath Ledger, and shout out to Tom Hardy. But we all want to see something different, and I think again that's why it's taken so long for Matt to to his benefit, come up with the right story, this director driven North story that he can tell. And again, we know Ben is not going to be in the movie. What are your overall thoughts about the Batman at this point? Because I see a lot of people not as saying they're not as excited for it. They may not see it. I'm gonna boycott DC films, and to their credit, I was really, when I first read that tweet that Ben sent out, I was really bummed out. I was at work at the time; it was late, and I legitimately almost left work. But I was like, I thought about it at the time. I was like, well, maybe if Matt is doing a trilogy, maybe they could build from the younger Batman and build to the older Batman, and bring back Ben Affleck. But I don't know if that's the case. And my question for you, with these overly long run-on sentences, is what do you think? What is your thought on the Batman at this point, overall?
I think it's in good hands. Just from a direction standpoint, as you said with Planet of the Apes, that reboot. It's just Matt's really good at what he does, and from like a mocap perspective, and lighting and silhouetting and all. These are all very noir, kind of Batman-esque, Batman-y type stuff. And I feel like he's gonna be the guy for the job. I heard a rumor. This was like, I don't know, maybe 2016 or something. That one of the first plans for the movie was that it was kind of. Have you played the Batman Arkham games?
Absolutely.
They were gonna do like something of a rendition of that, kind of not following its story, but go into the asylum and it'd be taken over by various supervillains, and they'd have thugs and there'd be this, I don't know, like some form of like shadowy kind of figure, and a lot of Batman villains can be like shadowy kind of figures. So it was very like this is a very rough, just kind of very like kind of first stages like of a plot, but we'd go down the asylum and things would get crazier and crazier and more intense, and I don't know, I feel like that'd be really interesting to see on screen. The thing about, and I don't mean to like completely diverge from your question, but this is something that I've really wanted to say for quite a bit now.
Go ahead.
The thing that people don't realize about comic books, like that whole genre, is that it's not a genre because it's every genre. Like take Man of Steel, like that alone, if you take out a lot of the superhero-y bits of that, right? Like it's a great sci-fi flick.
Exactly.
It is, and if you take something like BVS or Watchmen, well, that's a political, social, philosophical commentary about the human condition, right?
Right.
Take something like Aquaman or Black Panther, and that's more like kind of world leadery politics and ethics in that. Romance and with this new trench thing, horror. Like it's everything. It's an amalgamation of all genres, and that's why I think that like there's a comic book movie for everybody. You know what I mean? Like if it's in the right hands and the people know what they're doing, I feel like this genre can speak to pretty much anyone.
Damn. No, you killed it, man. I say that a lot, but you said a mouthful. Immediately when you said that thing about genre, I thought about Logan. If you look at Logan, it's like a Western almost. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Exactly.
Damn. All right, brother Rezzy. Again, I appreciate you collaborating with me on this video, man. And we're definitely gonna have to. No problem, man. We're definitely gonna have to do it again sometime. Now, finally, brother Rezzy, this last question, I saved it for last specifically. Now, why do you? And I asked Fran this in a past video. Shout out to him. When you touched on the relationship with Clark and Jonathan a little bit earlier in the vid. I think one of the aspects I really appreciate about the DCU as a whole is the, so far especially, Man of Steel, even BVS and Wonder Woman and Aquaman have really put a focus on the relationship between the hero and their mother, and seeing Martha and BVS, her reaction to Clark's corpse, that scene in particular really hit me, because I thought about all the talk she had with him, how she kept him, made sure he was okay, nurtured him, and she didn't care that he was from another planet or whatever. That was her boy. You know what I'm saying? Why do you feel that the DCU films put such a prime focus on the mothers, and do you appreciate that aspect? Yo, brother Rezzy.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. I accidentally pushed the wrong button.
No, you're good.
But
Did you did you catch what I said?
No, I heard everything.
Okay.
What I was saying, sorry, was I don't think it's just moms.
Mm-hmm.
I also think I think it's dads too.
Mm-hmm.
And we really would have saw that in Justice League in particular. In Aquaman we see Thomas Curry, and we would have seen a lot more Henry Allen and oh my gosh, what's Vic's dad's name? Silas?
Silas Stone. Yeah.
Yeah, Silas Stone, right. We would have seen their relationships more fleshed out and such. And I think the reason why they put so much emphasis on the parentals of these heroes is because they're not... They're probably not... I think this was done on purpose because the way these heroes are portrayed it's not what we're used to. And I think for a lot of traditional, comic book fans,
Mm-hmm.
That think, oh, Superman needs to always be smiling and always be this and that, and, Flash needs to always be cracking jokes, and this is uncomfortable territory for them. And I think having the parental figures in there, in a hero's moment of doubt, reassuring them that, you're doing the best that you can and you're doing the right thing, and these are all kind of real world things. And when you think about, not necessarily that a hero would retreat to parentals or anything like that, but your parents help you, they help create your worldview. And when it's kind of turned upside down, I feel like a person with that amount of power doesn't really know where to go for that kind of thing. I mean, Batman doesn't have that kind of closure, sadly, but the rest of them, in either one parent or both, they do have that. So I think that they use them as resources, for their acts.
Damn. Okay. Well, brother Rezzy, we're nearly 6 minutes away from an hour into this, man. We're about to close out, man. I really appreciate you collaborating with me on this. And like I say, I appreciate the continued support and you supporting the Snyder Cut movement as well. And brother Rezzy, do you have a Twitter, anything you would or anything that you want the people listening to follow you on?
I don't really have I don't really have any of that, but yeah. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not too many places. But hopefully, if brother Josh, allows me to, keep coming on, and if you want to talk to me in the chat of his videos, I'm absolutely down to be there. But yeah.
No problem, bro. Honestly, the way Twitter's going, I really need to take a break from social media myself, because it's really, it really gets out of hand sometimes, and it's just crazy some of the stuff you have to see. But that's a whole nother video. You guys, you guys, be sure to give this video a like, and stop being stingy with the likes. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment in the comment section, as I'm sure some of you all choose to. And thank you all so much once again for tuning in. And like I always say, don't get triggered. And we'll see you all in the foreseeable future. Peace out.
Peace, y'all.